going to record it. Perfect. So, hi everyone. It's great that everybody's here. So, I'm Thomas from Connected Heroes. You probably have received my mail and many more other stuff into the app. Athanasios, who is also here, is the Internet Connected Heroes. And Charlotte today is facilitating the workshop. So, I'm giving the word to her. And Charlotte, go ahead, I would say.
Thank you very much, and welcome everyone from all over the world, from Montreal to Canada, and right way to Los Angeles, going down and all the way across to Dubai. So, and back into Europe. Well done everyone for taking time out at your various time zones. It is an experiential workshop for you. It is sharing mindset and resilient techniques that I learned. And at the end of it, if you would like to communicate and we can get into a bit of a coaching space together, we'll just unmute our microphones at the end, but that won't be what's going live. So to all of you, welcome. And I will share my screen with you in a second. Thomas, if you could enable that I can share my screen, please. Thomas? Okay, great.
It should work now. I have made you a host, so...
Perfect, thank you. So welcome again, everybody. My name is Charlotte, and my business name is Emotion in Motion, and I have a new business called Your Hidden Genius. And I'm going to speak to you today of how the two of them came together. I'm based in South Africa, sunny South Africa, in spite of winter. Our summer days and our winter days are beautiful, either which way, but the evenings in winter are not so, we're not geared for winter like the rest of the world is. So let me start off sharing my screen with you. I'll share the presentation from the beginning. When we speak to the topic of mindset and resilience, we think about what we've already learned in the world, what we have discovered about ourselves, our experiences, everything that we have been taught to date is what creates our mindsets, the neural pathways in our brain. And our resilience is built up with how we have managed and coped and dealt with whatever has come our way in the learning of life. I call it the University of Life. So how do we, and especially in today's times with the pandemic, how do we look at life differently? How do we approach life in a way that gives us absolute uniqueness? If I could ask Sumaya, if you wouldn't mind putting your microphone on mute. Thank you. So we look at how do we relearn how to think in a time of pandemic? How do we create our life starting from scratch or building on what we already know? How do we create that space which gives us a natural resilience versus the forced resilience that we seem to find ourselves in the world? And my slogan is disrupt, innovate, and educate. And that's how we do it. We disrupt our thinking because we want to innovate and we want to educate ourselves in a new way. And whatever we do within ourselves overflows and recreates in our outside world. So relearning how to think has got 5 different factors that we're going to cover today. The natural tendency for evolution, that is what we do when we relearn how to think and we learn how to think. We disrupt in the space of innovation. We want to also create a socioeconomic impact. The world has given us this opportunity. The natural disaster, well, maybe it's not so natural, but the disaster we have faced and many generations before us have faced, it's always got a socioeconomic impact as a result. And how does that fit in with your future genius, your unique little part of you that you fit in as a unique piece of the puzzle versus a replica of somebody else's puzzle? And how do we maintain that in a way that's sustainable and measurable? So we want to innovate within ourselves and educate ourselves on how to relearn how to think, covering evolution, knowing that we're going to make an impact for other people. So imagine for a moment, imagine that you're just waking up and you feel the excitement in your body. If you want to close your eyes for a second and you wake up and you feel the body waking up, you feel your cells waking up, and you stretch your fingers and you stretch your toes and you feel this sudden excitement in your belly and you have no idea where it comes from. You just know that there's an excitement. And slowly you open your eyes and you look outside the window and you see the sun is shining and you sit up and you notice that the sky is bluer The flowers are brighter. There's butterflies. The grass is really much greener than it was yesterday. That feeling of excitement, of not knowing. Imagine waking up with that every single morning. If you'd like to open your eyes for a second. Relearning how to think is what I had to learn. I had to learn to find excitement for every day. And my story is not like most of us, we've all got a story, and no one story is better than another story. No one's got something bigger or better. We've all just got a story. And it's within that space that you can relearn. That our stories have got many moments of disruption. It's in that space that we learn to innovate and we learn to educate in that space ourselves. We relearn how to think every single day. And to wake up with that feeling of excitement is a choice, an absolutely beautiful choice. But how do we get to that point? So my full life before I went through a burnout, a brain and body burnout, I was a professional coach by day and a professional belly dancer by night. I ran the biggest studio in South Africa. I built it up from nothing. I built it up from my own brain, me, myself, and I, being a performer, being a teacher, and it just grew. And suddenly, at the end of 2010, I couldn't understand how the last year I'd limped through the year. I could not understand. I was so tired. I was craving chocolates and all the wrong things trying to feed my body to give it energy. And I had no idea what was going on. I was always driven just to carry on. You know, you have a moment, you get tired, you pick yourself up and you carry on again. That's who I've always been. This is what I look like. So this is me before burnout. This is me in burnout. I lost my confidence. I lost my drive. I lost my sense of purpose. I lost what I thought were friends. I had to start from scratch again. Start from scratch. And for a woman at a certain age in her 40s, it's not an ideal, yummy situation to think about. And I faced life every single day until I got to that. So how did I get from before to my after picture? Because I sat in it. I sat in that space of not knowing. With a physical and a mental burnout, in many ways, your hormones get affected, your chemicals in your body are affected, and I refused to take medication because I believed I could conquer this and nothing was going to stop me. It was just a phase. I had no idea of the impact it would have on my life today. And the whole time, I kept getting a message, this is for a purpose. There were days when I had to choose. And sometimes when stress gets to us, we all have this choice. Do I want to stay or do I want to go? I had to make a choice. And the choice was made for me every time I sat in that moment and the emotions were just uncontrollable. I could feel it in my mind. I could feel it in my body. There was a voice that was speaking to me. The same voice that had been my driver, the same voice was saying, be gentle, be still. There is a purpose to this. And I don't wish that process of 7 years on anyone. So we know in that space of when we have to restart our lives or when we just have a crisis, a moment of any kind, and a crisis can be one event, it can be a buildup of a lifetime of events. The challenges that influence and affect every single one of us equally are us as an individual, how we respond to those changes, how our natural differences kick in. If we are mentally and physically fatigued, if we don't have money to find a coach or a therapist, if that's what we need, how do we cope? How do we get unstuck when we know that there's a little voice inside of us? How do we get to that point of being able to keep going, not knowing what the outcome is going to be? And the person that influences all of that is ourselves. It's our own mind. It's our own conditioning. It's how we have lived our life. You know, your life brought you to where you are today with a number of different tools and techniques that put you together. You are not made in a factory. You are made by something much more of a miracle. And in that miracle, there are many more miracles to awaken. So we know that the human being, the mind, is the common denominator in the fourth industrial revolution for the future. Is how do we change the way we think? You know, we have, I call it the neural pathways. If you can look at my little video in the corner, I'll show you. In the wood, in the bushes, in the nature, in the woods, you often see little pathways that are going like this. And we don't know what they are. We just know that the wild animals follow them. When a tree falls across one of those paths, what do the animals do? They either jump over, they go around, they stop dead. That's like a neural pathway in your brain. We have those habitual little patterns and paths. So a crisis often interrupts that, and we call it a state interrupt. How do we interrupt our states? Consciously, not by our external circumstances, outside challenges. How do you choose to change that from within? So the leadership of the future, the World Economic Forum referred to the leaders that are emotionally intelligent, able to model and champion cooperative working. In other words, we're no longer going to have competition, we are going to have collaboration, and we're going to work together. How do we interrupt our own states in our mind that, in a way that builds trust and confidence and our uniqueness? Because we usually compete with each other when we are doing something what is the same thing. In other words, rinsing and repeating. But if we are doing our uniqueness, if we are doing our genius voice, if we are doing what we are meant to be doing from a purpose inside of you, that tiny little part that lives inside your heart, and I call it living in my heart. You can choose where yours lives, but know that there is a difference between head and heart. If you think it lives in your head, you've got another thing coming, because you created that head from your heart. So remember that the digital revolution needs different leadership, and it starts with each of us. None of you know if you're going to be the next Richard Branson or Elon Musk of the world. You don't know that. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We just know our choices every single day make up how our tomorrow happens. So in building a mindset of resilience and building new neural pathways, which are called, and creating neurogenesis, which is called creating new ways of doing. So doing something totally different, like going for a walk on a new road, or driving a different way, or catching a different train, or doing something you've never done before, creates neurogenesis. It also excites you. On a physical level, something new excites you. So if you want to wake up every morning with that feeling of excitement, and you want to push yourself into a new, uncomfortable but very comfortable place of creating excitement, as your state interrupt, then you have to make a choice, and you have to listen to the voice. So a lot of people say to me, yeah, but I'm a parent, I don't have time to do all this. You know, being a parent is also a purpose. Every job that you do is a purpose. If you're not enjoying it, don't do it. Find something that you do enjoy, or at least balance the two. Do what you need to do to put food on the table, but find something you do enjoy, because excitement every single day, creating those new neural pathways, creating neurogenesis, happens because you are pushing yourself past a little boundary versus life showing up and giving you that little boundary. So it's a very natural step in our evolution of humankind of facing any pandemic, any crisis, any personal individual state of a challenge that comes into our life as a natural next step for our evolution. Because how we respond to our challenges is how we evolve. You'll find, if you want to Google, have a look for the Cartwright Triangle. The Cartwright Triangle puts humanity into three areas. You're either a victim, a rescuer, or a perpetrator. As a personality type, you either come in and out of any of those. So we either stay in our victim space, or we perpetrate getting into the victim or the rescuer, or we try and rescue ourselves. So it becomes a cycle within ourselves. And if you look back at some of the things in your life where the pattern seems to have repeated, look at how you've responded. I use the Cartwright Triangle as my own personal little, you know, you have the light and the dark inside of all of you. And I use that as my dark. Am I in my victim space? Am I in my perpetrator space? Am I doing what I know perpetuates an unhealthy cycle? So evolution is growing that awareness of your challenges And the way that I coped, and the way that I've always coped, is to look at every single challenge that's come my way and say, what is the purpose in this? So when I got to the point of my burnout and I had to choose to stay or to go, because I was ready to give up every single day, the emotional torment, I cannot explain. It was like somebody was taking me out on a physical level and wringing me out, and I had no idea why. You can choose that to happen, or you can choose to every single day squeeze out a little something that doesn't serve you. I liken it to when I look at a cupboard full of clothes, and you take one drawer and you pull everything out of that cupboard, that one drawer, and you're now left with an empty space. What am I going to put back in it? So when a challenge arises, I have always trained my mind, my brain, myself, my inner driver. The one thing I can rely on is me. I've always trained myself to be able to step through that space, to step into the space of going and creating a new way to cope, or a gentler way to cope. And I had to learn to be gentle, because we are often, generations before us had different ways to survive. The generations going forward will have different ways to survive. And if any of your parents or are going to become parents, you're going to see your own patterns coming up with your children. And do you allow them to repeat your patterns that didn't work for you or did work for you, or do you allow them to create new patterns? Being a parent is the next natural leadership role. It's the most important one anyone will ever play. If you give your children the tools on how to be independent, if you give each other the tools on how to be independent, how to believe and trust in yourself, that's evolution. Not rinse and repeat what's happened before so it happens again. You know, it's like the past and the future. We want to be able to create something new in between. So evolutionary psychology, if any of you follow any of this, it's quite interesting. There's many different schools of thoughts out there. Choose what you want to. Don't believe what I'm saying to you is it. For me, this is it. This was my answer, because in the space of my burnout, I did research. I studied neuroscience. I became a Kundalini yoga teacher. I did what I needed to do to keep going, putting one foot in front of the other. But I started listening to the parts of me that were excited by certain things. And I started following that versus the have to do's. I started doing the things that excited me, not the things that have to do's. I changed my priorities. So on a scale, the one was outweighing, and I shifted that balance. If it excited me, I did more of it. So evolutionary psychology, and the little bit that I have researched with it, there are two ways that we evolve as humanity, as a human race, is that it's technical, techniques, technology, tools that bring us together. And in that space, bringing us together, the social interaction is how we evolve. So now the pandemic gave us a perfect opportunity to connect without being in each other's face. We are connected from four ends of the world here. I mean, this is amazing. And we are authentically connected. You are here because you want to be here. I'm here because I want to be here. That is evolution. We are being drawn together by something. And we don't have to have the answers. We just have to allow that inner voice to allow us to be drawn. Because within that space is where you find answers. Your brain can cope with whatever you give it. Whatever you choose to learn, it can cope. The question is, if you don't have a vested emotional buy-in, you're not going to want to sustain it. That excitement has got to be there. Doesn't matter what the level of excitement is, whether it's a 1 out of 10 or it's a 10 out of 10, because different things give us different levels of excitement. So when we disrupt innovation in that space, because finding that innovation is the key to getting out of our stuck state and dealing with crises, how do we disrupt at the same time that innovates? Most people run because they get fearful. The pandemic made many people fear. And in a fear space, you know, we have different responses in the brain. Let's just talk on the surface. Did you want to fight with everyone in that space? Did you want to freeze up? What was it? What was your response? Did you want to run away? I guarantee that most people on this planet did a little bit of all three. It was not an easy space for many people. However, it was our personal development, self-coaching space that hopefully will never be repeated again in our lifetime. Once this is over, in the next month or two, it's over. But how do we now approach fear? Are we going to train our brains to think differently about fear? Are we going to look forward to a disruption to make innovation happen? Because there are many things that have become innovative in the space of going online, where the whole world's been forced to now connect, come together, and innovate. Have you innovated something new? Have you innovated in your kitchen? Have you innovated in your garden? Have you innovated with your communication techniques? How have you used the pandemic to innovate? Because the pandemic disrupted us. It was that tree falling across the path. And you can create, every morning you can wake up and say, I'm going to disrupt today and I'm going to do something different. And at the same time that you are disrupting, you are giving yourself an opportunity to create a new neural pathway based on a design of wanting to. That desire is number one. I want to create a new way around. I want to create new brain cells. I want to do something new because it excites me and it keeps me out of fear. And in the space of doing things that excite me, I learned to trust. I learned to trust my voice. In the 7 years where I had no other choice but to sit in it, I had to learn to transform fear to trust. Instead of sitting in it and freezing, which I still do, by the way, I still freeze. The question is, how do you turn your fear into trust? To learn to trust those moments. So when we look at evolution and we look at being innovative, you don't know whatever you're creating in this time of crises. And even if it's not a crisis, you never know the impact you're going to have. So when they created the wheel, when they invented the wheel, they didn't have conversations about return on investment and I don't have the time and, you know, where am I going to put all these little objects in my garden or in my cave or wherever it was. They just created it because somebody had a vision. Today, we cannot be without wheels in most forms of life, from technology in your home to the way we communicate with each other. You know, it's a wheel of life. When they invented flight, did they discuss return on investment? Did they have that conversation? They were just driven by a vision. And those visions that you have are unique. And they're tiny, little ones at first. It's like a little drop in the ocean. And it depends on the kind of conditioning you've had. I mean, I was being delicate with the way I'm putting it there, as to whether you were encouraged to believe in those little droplets, or if you were told, no, you're ridiculous and shut down. There are way too many voices that need to be empowered still. And that is how we're going to change the world, is by stepping into that space of disruption and creating something out of it and being creative in it, or being innovative in it. And not judging ourselves that it's not the right thing to do. If it feels right, do it. If it's constructive and it does something positive for yourself and the people around you, do it. So your genius and embodied learning is the lesson that I learned. I had to find my genius. And I have always done embodied learning. I've always walked my talk. I've always been physically active. And the burnout taught me that because I had to stop exercising. I went through withdrawal symptoms as well, and kind of like realizing that it was an addiction. Exercise is an addiction. My hormones, my endocrine system loves it, loves the release of those excess hormones. My body loves the exercise. And I didn't know it because my work life, the dancing that I was doing, the teaching I was doing at nighttime, had become a have to do it. When it becomes a have to, you lose your passion and it's time for change. And I had a choice at the time. I could have shifted into the more, what do we call it, where they fuse different forms of dance into one and they call it by the same name. And that's not me. I'm a purist. There's no ways I wanted to fuse that form of dancing. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to hold the sacredness of it. So I had to choose to walk away and hand over the reins to other people who wanted to do the fusing. I was enabling that space and at the same time liberating. So what do you have to walk away from in your life in order to find your genius? And when I say walk away, I mean physically walk away. Embodied learning is taking all of you. It's not just from your head up, it's all of you, from your head down too. Your body speaks to you. And your emotions are key in that space of how it speaks to you, because you are emotion and motion. The amygdala in your brain says so. The more you keep it small, the less chance you've got of being something bigger and greater. The less chance you've got of feeding those little droplets of genius. And you don't know what the genius droplet's going to come like. I call them nuggets. If you think about Richard Branson, his parents didn't tell him he couldn't do it. They supported him no matter what. He made mistakes. He didn't do it for becoming a millionaire or a billionaire. He just did it because it felt right. And it was exciting and something new. You probably found that he might be addicted to creation. Now, isn't that an awesome addiction to have? Be creative. Be addicted to creating something new every day or enjoying what you've got every day. So if you could live from your genius, would you? If you could live every day listening to your true north, your genius voice, would you? Because coaching style conversations will become the communication style of the future. Your genius's voice speaks to opportunity and possibility in everything until it gets the answer that this is just not right. It's just not working. That's like the last resort you ever get to. But if there is a tiny, tiny droplet of hope, you carry on, because that is how a coach would encourage you. You don't give up on your droplets, because your droplets are part of you. That's like a self-abuse. It's like saying to you, you're not allowed to think these things, you're not allowed to be these things, you're not allowed to do these things. Why would you negate and invalidate what inside of you feels so right? Because you can become your own coach. And if you want to sustain it and you want to measure it, it's got to be up to you and how you set your values going forward. You have to decide, is choice going to become my value? In other words, when that tree falls across the path, how am I going to make a choice? Am I going to go, oh, woe is me, it's out of my hands, I can't do anything? Or am I going to say, what can I do? And to go into that place of silent reflection and let that inner voice speak. Because you have got another voice. You've got the voice of your mind that's been trained. How do you retrain it? You have to listen to your inner voice. Your higher self, your intuitive self, your voice of heart, whatever you want to call it. You want to listen to whatever influences that part of you, because that's the part of you that has much more still to say. The brain only regurgitates what it knows. The voice of heart, the other voice inside of you, regurgitates things that you've never heard. And they're beautiful and excitement. It's filled with excitement. And some days they just say, gentle, take a day. Go for a walk, take a day. If you listen to that voice, you will have the answers on how to find resilience. If you think about these world leaders, Martin Luther King, Mahatma Gandhi, and Nelson Mandela, they all did things that they never had a tangible outcome for. They just knew it was the right thing to do. And for you, the right thing to create that excitement every day might be to, I don't know, take a loaf of bread to a neighbor or to a home, or go and walk animals in an animal shelter, or it could be having coffee with your family. Whatever feeds that little genius nugget of excitement inside of you, and you cannot have an absolute certainty and an answer, is where you want to start focusing for the future, because that's how a future evolves. Because what's in the mind is past tense. We want to create new. The mind can do whatever we want it to do. Nelson Mandela says it always seems impossible till it's done. So I'd ask each of you, if you could evolve your inner genius and your business and your life without an absolute a known certainty in return on investment, would you? I call it return on innovation. You don't know what's going to come tomorrow. You don't know what small thing you do today is going to make an impact in somebody else's life. You just have to try. So what did I create in my space? I disrupted the coaching industry by putting coaching into more people's hands, and not as a coach, to self-coach. I found a way that you can self-coach yourself and disrupt your thinking and support your inner voice at the same time in a way that's gentle and for a certain period of time. So you have to do these for 108 days. It takes 40 days to change a habit, and it takes 90 days to create a new one. So I created these, what I call them books in a box, but it's actually all live on an online platform now. So you can access the topics. We're busy uploading its brand new website, and the website's been in development for the past 4 months. And the last 3 weeks it's been live. Last a week and a half it's been live, and we've been a soft launch. But I found a way to support more people, to put coaching into more people's hands, because coaching has always been exclusive and it's unaffordable for many people. And some people think coaching is therapy and it's telling you what to do and telling you what to think, and it's not. Coaching elicits from you the answers you already know. It's one of the presuppositions of coaching is that the client has all the answers. So some of the techniques work around that. So I found you will see there are actually 14 topics there, because there's 2 in the Woman Empowerment one. 14 ways for you in less than 5 minutes a day to shift your thinking, to coach yourself and become accountable to yourself without involving a coach, and it's affordable. So that is my story. That is how I disrupted my own mind, my own life, how my body interrupted me, how my body brought me to my knees to meet my soul, to meet my voice of my heart, to meet the part of me, the higher self of me, so that I could innovate and make an impact in the world, that I could step into a purpose. So that is, bottom line, my story. And I would ask to each of you, if you want to build mindset of resilience, is creating a value of choice. So if you could create it, would you? If you could self-coach yourself in 5 minutes a day, less than 5 minutes a day, and shift your thinking and inspire and excite that inner voice, would you? I call it tickling the mind and creating curiosity. So you want to create that innovative space, that embodied space, that all of you space, that is 1000% of you, and get back into your life and business. Because we are each other. We are the mirror in each other. If you show up in that space, other people around you will start feeling it. That excitement, that exhilaration, the impact of knowing you're making an impact, a positive impact for others. But starting with yourself. You know the airplane story? You put the mask on yourself first before anyone else. You've got to learn to do it for yourself. I mean, you would not come to me and ask me to coach you on or mentor you in, I don't know, building bicycles. I have no experience in that. It's not my niche. The same as you. Find someone who will mentor you or coach you in a space, or self-coach yourself with this tool that I've developed on the platform. Find yourself a mentor or somebody that is experienced in the area where you're uncertain, but you know you've got a sense of it. Follow those little droplets of genius. I call them the nuggets of genius. So, to all of you,